Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and you know things are rough when the posthumous King Von album bomb is not the worst thing that happened here. It's Billboard Breakdown.
I don't remember.
So if I have not made it clear before, let me make it clear now. Posthumous album bomb weeks, even the small ones, and especially the ones that are just small enough they skirt past my rules and make them inevitable to discuss, they're nearly always the worst to talk about. It's an event, but it feels concocted by the industry all the way down, and the cynicism of the whole endeavor becomes kind of difficult to stomach. The one thing I can give the late King Von album bomb, it at least blocked the collaboration one from YoungBoy Never Broke Again and DaBaby, but if that's the case, it looks like it's gonna be another rough week, folks. Strap in. Of course, none of this is really helped by our top 10, which is stagnant, and gave Heat Waves by Glass Animals a second week at number 1, mostly because it saw spikes in streaming and sales to compensate for slight declines on the radio. But when your closest competition is We Don't Talk About Bruno by the Encanto cast at number 2, which never had radio and is simply riding out the insane streaming and YouTube, it's sadly not really in serious danger here. Then we got Super Gremlin by Kodak Black up to number 3. I'm putting this more on streaming than anything else, and more because ABCDEFU by Gail saw her radio run abruptly run out of gas and just not able to make up the margins anywhere else at number 4. I'm kind of disappointed, but if there was a week for a big sales discount, this was it, and the song instead collapsed there this week. Then we got a series of tracks holding positions. Stay by the Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber at number 5 hit another radio peak, but did decently on streaming to compensate. Easy on Me by Adele held at number 6 despite being in free fall on the radio, but it was enough to hold over Ghost by Justin Bieber at number 7, which is ahead on the radio, but also in decline and lags in streaming. Then we had 2 Ed Sheeran songs basically just exchange places, with Bad Habits pulling ahead at number 8 thanks to holding above it on the radio, even despite Shivers at number 9 holding on to slightly better radio and sales. It's all in the streaming margin. But finally, That's What I Want by Lil Nas X clawed back to the top 10 because its radio is holding on, but pretty much just that. Go figure. Anyway, on to our losers and dropouts. We're in the latter category, outside of the expected departure of Better Days by Naked, Mae Muller, and Polo G, of which I actually discovered after last week there's actually a few folks who kinda care about it. The only song that's maybe somewhat relevant is Scorpio by Moneybagg, and even that's tenuous. It's not making the year-end list. The losers are a little bit more scattered though, from Freaky Deaky by Tyga and Doja Cat, not quite catching traction off the debut down to 67, and the sudden collapse for Aha by Lil Durk at 34 off the gain. No worries there, it's gonna rebound in a big way next week. Then we got the continued losers. Nail Tech by Jack Harlow's not getting traction at 55. Neither is Oh My God by Adele at 84. I'm still kinda shocked this is tanking, even if it looks like it's probably locked for a year-end list spot, kinda to my astonishment. Then Waiting on a Miracle by Stephanie Beatriz is at 83, and City of Gods by Fivio Foreign, Kanye West, and Alicia Keys at 90. Then we got the songs that have likely locked in their year-end list spot. Meet Me at Our Spot by The Anxiety at 50, and thankfully Smoking Out the Window by Silk Sonic at 64. And the rest, well, Half of My Hometown by Kelsey Ballerini featuring Kenny Chesney stalling out at 63. Rumors by Gucci Mane and Lil Durk hit 79. Cigarettes by Juice WRLD hit 94. And Do It To It by A-Craze featuring Cherish fell to 95. Good riddance. But what the hell is filling in this gaps in returns and the gains here? Well, let's deal with the former category because it's considerably stupider. Yeah, Give Heaven Some Hell by Hardy's back at 91, no surprise, but wait, why is Drunk and I Don't Want to Go Home by Elle King and Miranda Lambert back at 47? Don't get me wrong, I really like that song, but this should have just snagged the year-end list back in 2021. Why is it back now? Well, that's thanks to its kind of wonky radio run that Music Row is categorically mismanaged, and Billboard's mind-numbingly inconsistent enforcement of its radio recurrence rules. And since the song has surged on country radio the past couple of weeks, it's now on the charts. yay, I guess. But the gains somehow are even messier. The only consistent traction is coming for Boyfriend by Dove Cameron off all things at 42. But what might be more mystifying to me is Slow Down Summer by Thomas Rhett at 52. Again, why push this now? It's the wrong season. Can't say I'm remotely pleased that these new arrivals are getting traction though. I'm Tired by Labyrinth and Zendaya's at 53, and Rocking a Cardigan in Atlanta by Lil Shorty Scott to 77. Really? The only game that doesn't really surprise me in the slightest is Don't Play That by the late King Von and 21 Savage at 61, thanks to the album bomb, and I gotta hope it doesn't stick around. It's not good. But you know, when we look at our 10 new arrivals, we kinda have to start there. So, number 97, Trust Nothing by King Von featuring Moneybagg. Yo.
I don't do one-on-ones, bitch, I need two of you. I don't trust nothing, I keep it 100. I thought it was something, it really was nothing. We started out fucking, I keeping you coming. I'm holding her down, she can't do no running.
So we have 5 new King Von songs to deal with, and the majority of them are near the very bottom of the Hot 100. Let's start with the one from Moneybagg Yo, and I don't think it's bad, but it absolutely feels like they dropped the Moneybagg Yo verse onto this instead of the Asian Doll verse in the demo, because he's the bigger name, not like he fits at all. Off the lumbering beat, extremely limited trap percussion, and the piano loop, he's not quite as clumsy as he normally is, but the content just does not match King Von's storytelling of stealing a girl and then having her aggressively cheat on him, and he's mad about that. And that should not be a surprise, given how she wound up in the situation with him. Outside of that, the rest of the song is a series of aggressive threats from King Von, who I do think sells it well, even if I think the added backing vocals makes the song feel a little bit more cluttered than it needs to be. Not bad per se, but it's not enough for me to care all that much. Unlike number 96, Evil Twins by King Von and Lil Durk.
Homie think I killed this cousin, well oh well. Zoo just beat his body like I beat man, ain't no L. Signed a deal for a couple mil, little nigga, I still drill.
Alright, outside of the expected question of whether or not it's a good idea to make posthumous gangland songs like this, especially when Lil Durk is still caught in the thick of it, this is the expected collab, and yet despite not even clocking 2 minutes, I think this is pretty damn solid, even if kind of single-minded in the violence. The spare clicks that ramp into the warping melody and the heavier trap shuffle, both Lil Durk and King Von are bringing a lot of intensity and sharp flows that they trade off really well, and the menace is palpable. Apparently this wasn't intended for a collaboration mixtape between the two, and hell, if it would have gone this hard, it's just one more tragedy to add to the pile, because this is actually pretty damn good. I'll say it. Number 93, Straight to It by King Von featuring Fivio Foreign.
Sick, they lose. All these we got, we use. He got caught, that boy was snooze. Got 30, hurry up, get a new one. You don't wanna get into it.
I mean, I guess if we're staying in drill, we gotta bring in Fivio Foreign for at least one feature, even if that chirpy melody off the swampy drill percussion leaves the entire song lurching off the bass and perhaps not being as punchy as it could be. Granted, the contrast in personality shows exactly how much Fivio Foreign pales in comparison to a rapper who will go that much harder with more flair. And even if King Von is using his song as an extended violent flex gunning people down, he is simply just way more convincing, and his flow feels a lot tighter. At this point, I gotta question why the curators for this posthumous album thought it was a good idea to lean in so hard on the violence, especially with the YoungBoy and Lil Durk beef. It feels irresponsible as all hell. We'll have to come back to that. But King Von can sell it effectively. My god, what a waste. Number 92, Facetime by King Von featuring G Herbo.
Bleeding for a month out here. Niggas hit it cause they bitches acting up out here. Boy, you tweaking if you think we give a fuck out here.
And we're staying in that territory for yet another song, swapping out drill for a more aggressive, weedy, symphonic menace with the bassy trap percussion, and G Herbo also kind of falling a little short compared to what King Von was delivering. And the fact that that's a pattern outside of Lil Durk only leaves me more frustrated here. Yeah, the storytelling tends to default to gangland violence, and there's not much in the way of depth with it, even as he will highlight if he's caught, he'll do the time, and then references killing someone trying him, which gets kind of macabre when you realize it didn't really happen that last time. But it's abundantly clear that King Von had a lot of the personality and flair to be the next one up, and this album only exposes further what might have been. So yeah, it's fine, not great, but I'll certainly take it over number 89, Neighborhood Superstar by DaBaby and YoungBoy Never Broke Again.
Look in your eyes, but you look at the flow, so I'm trying to know what you know what's the deal. Nigga, we got a problem up and on every car that poop beside me.
You know, it's kind of impressive just how far the stars of both of these acts have fallen in the past year or two, albeit for very different reasons. Now, folks are going to point at the Rolling Loud incident for DaBaby, but let's be real. In truth, a bad run of singles and complete mismanagement derailed his career way more aggressively. And with YoungBoy, look, I've unfortunately had a close vantage point to his implosion in real time the past month or two. But that being said, I actually remember liking their collaboration back on Blame It On Baby in 2020, so while I had zero interest covering it, maybe they found the one good song to salvage? Well, after hearing it, look, if this is the best they both have, maybe it's better that they both fade into obscurity and fast. From the gooey synth sprayed all over the melody and the really cheap sounding trap percussion, to the increasingly sloppy gunplay and fucking from YoungBoy, where once again he's mentioning that he's on a ton of pills and it all feels suicidal. I've been saying this for weeks now. This is not set up to end well. Maybe someone needs to get this guy some help. And then there's DaBaby. And you know, I'll give him and YoungBoy this. They certainly rap fast, and in DaBaby's case, he is more on point than you might expect outside of some rough backing vocals on that last verse. But is it just me, or for as fast as he's flowing, he's saying very little, and he sounds like he'd rather be anywhere else rather than leveraging this collab? And why by the end of this verse does he talk about violent sex with Nina Simone, who passed away years ago? It doesn't make you look like a superstar or a provocateur. It looks classless and desperate for anyone to pay attention. The song's not worth any of that. I'm sick of it. Next. Number 82, A by Machine Gun Kelly and Lil Wayne.
Hey, 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 hey.
So I don't quite know what Machine Gun Kelly's planning with this next album. Even despite really liking Tickets to My Downfall, I have rock bottom expectations, and increasingly showing up with rap co-stars, in this case Lil Wayne, who after Rebirth you'd think would know to stay away from this subgenre. I just had an uneasy feeling about this, especially when the buzz seemed really negative, and while I get that, I'm also left wondering why this was being pushed at all. It feels like an unfinished demo, maybe more of an interlude. The pitched up sample of MGK for the hook, the fact Lil Wayne very obviously phoned it in for his 8 bars, the fact that the cheap emo trap that Machine Gun Kelly that was getting accused of ripping off 3 years ago with the clanking guitar and the trap percussion, where I've never really been all that impressed with what Travis Barker delivers when it's not integrated with the rest of his kit. What I find a lot more concerning though is how conceptually this is a song about being on top, sleepwalking through the fame with tons of drugs, and that just kind of misses the appeal of what Tickets to My Downfall even was, basically a careening last-ditch effort to hold the shattered remains of his career together. Does honestly anyone really care enough to hear about MGK in this state as the mainstream sellout? But at the end of the day, it's not good, but it's also not worth caring about either. I think I gotta wait for the proper disappointment of the album. Just saying. Number 73, War by King Von.
Nigga ain't going out back, I'm blowing. I'll be at his crib every day of the week. Mental was nice, I couldn't even sleep. War outside, niggas couldn't even eat. I was 16 with a coming 15, motherfuckers gotta die and it ain't gonna be me.
Alright, last of the King Von songs, and it's one without a feature, also the second song on the album that probably has more to do with it charting this high, but hey, it could be good, right? Honestly, not really. The brighter melody behind the sharper trap hi-hat and the drill bass certainly lends the song a little bit more color, but when the content is just more hollering gunplay where the flow is a lot choppier and there's little to no attempt at storytelling, it just falls really flat. Again, I'm left wondering in how much bad taste it is to release a King Von posthumous album like this at this time, given all the fighting and what happened to King Von at the very end. But if anything, it just reminds me a lot of lost potential. Even if I could take or leave this example. Go figure. Number 72, Publicity Stunt by Gucci Mane.
Don't get put in the blunt, you can diss all you want, still won't get a response. It's still free to game till they get out the chance. Stop being around the bush and just get to the point. You wanna be me, I know what you want, but you ain't gotta pull no publicity stunt.
Okay, so remember last week when I covered I Hate YoungBoy, where the titular character was basically spewing insults at anyone with a perceived affiliation with Lil Durk? including Gucci Mane. I said then that it was a really bad idea, not because Gucci could respond with bars, but with a lot of bullets, especially if YoungBoy ever wants to show his face in Atlanta again. But it turns out Gucci Mane had a song prepared to respond properly, and you know, as someone who probably likes more YoungBoy songs than Gucci, this is a lot better than I expected. I mean, the trap beat might be standard, and Gucci's reference points either come across as really dated, who the hell still cares about tricking and Rob Kardashian, or just really tasteless, dropping the R slur, calling rappers pussy because they bleed once a month, the Russia references. But Gucci's flow is also surprisingly sharp, and he does wind up making some okay points. I like that he asked why YoungBoy even targeted him, especially as he's been claiming to be a fan before, and how Gucci highlights there are real consequences to this sort of violence and provocation, referencing the death of young Dolph and the lengthy jail sentence that his affiliate Pooh Shiesty is set to face. So playing all this for a big publicity stunt or online attention, when YoungBoy's anger should really be directed at Atlantic, who appears to have locked him in a really bad contract? I don't know, it just comes across as really badly misdirected, and Gucci Mane knows that. I mean, I can't believe that he's coming across like the adult in the room, but he is in his 40s. He's been in and out of jail alongside beefs that have had bloody consequences. He's been here before. I can't fault him for going in this direction, even if I'm kind of surprised. I'm not gonna claim it's a good song, but you know, it might be a necessary one if people listen. I'll give him that. Number 60, Handsomer by Russ featuring ft.ktlyn.
Like a come up in the answer for her problems, but I'm not him, I don't mind it though. You don't like me how you think you do, I like it though.
You know, we don't have to give Russ any more attention. Y'all know that, right? He can have his cult following far away from the charts and I don't have to care, and we'll be better off vaguely remembering Best on Earth with Bia as the quite terrible song that it is. But in this case, he had a track go viral on TikTok with a remix and added rap verse from ft.ktlyn, a white girl rapper who has a tangible following despite being a desaturated ripoff of both Doja Cat and Bia at their least expressive. And yeah, this sucks. The dreary melody behind the lumpy trap beat. I still can't stand how Russ mixes the hi-hat, always leaving it a little bit more present and grating than it should be in the mix. But of course, the larger problem is Russ himself, who is highlighting how he's good looking, but money gives him more appeal, makes him handsomer, and that can attract the wrong sorts of girls, but he can take it, of course he can. Or can he? Because he then pulls the "you like my songs" and lists 5 of them nonsense that screams of the most obnoxious music nerds online. Frankly, I'm stunned Russ doesn't realize how corny this brand of gatekeeping comes across. And this is a music critic saying it. And then there's ft.ktlyn, where she tries to play coy in response, where she'd rather spend his money even though she makes a decent bit, but the dick needs to be there better than her side dude. And then she references Best on Earth, and I know exactly why Russ picked her for the remix. But I'm sorry, this is bad in a sour, not particularly interesting way. The cheapest sort of TikTok virality that rewards a phrase more than a complete song. Because go any further and it's incoherent in mood and execution, more to stroke a lot of egos that neither of them can coherently back up. In other words, it sucks. Next. And finally, number 23, Bam Bam by Camila Cabello featuring Ed Sheeran. You know we're in a rough stretch on the Hot 100, then for the second week in a row, I'm praying for a pop collab song with a stupid name to salvage things when I don't even like one of the artists. This time we got Camila Cabello recruiting Ed Sheeran. You'd think South of the Border would have convinced everyone involved this was not an experience that needed a second helping. But you know what, Camila Cabello has been leaning harder on the Latin elements, and I still like Don't Go Yet a lot more than I should, so alright, maybe this works. Honestly, kinda does. Yeah, you can absolutely argue that the more traditionally inspired Cuban percussion playing off the brighter acoustics is not pushing any boundaries whatsoever, or that Ricky Reed's horns have a lot more flair than actual body in the mix, or that Camila Cabello and Ed Sheeran have absolutely no chemistry and they're trying to play to a very safe Latin pop niche that neither fit all that convincingly, but has proven crazy lucrative in 2022. But outside of all that, this is fine. It's bright, it's trying to be optimistic, look forward after a few hard years, especially post-breakup for Camila Cabello, and if she wants to keep on dancing for a cheery summer song, it's kind of hard to dislike, especially as Camila Cabello is gradually becoming a better singer, even if this continues to push her outside of her natural range, and that is an issue. I mean, I'm not gonna call it great or anything, or even all that memorable, but I don't mind it being here. I'll say that. And that was our week. Oh my god, 2 rough ones in a row, where the honorable mentions honestly go into Bam Bam by Camila Cabello featuring Ed Sheeran, and even then, that feels like a stretch when the best of the week is Evil Twins by the late King Von and Lil Durk. In most weeks, that wouldn't be the best of anything. Worst of the week, on the other hand, we got a bountiful of choices. I'm going Neighborhood Superstar by DaBaby and YoungBoy. It would be my pick, if only for the final lines of DaBaby's verse, but there is enough technical competency here to edge it right below Handsomer by Russ and ft.ktlyn, which just offends all my sensibilities for being crap and not even remotely interesting to boot. Easily the worst of the week. Why do I think that Jack Harlow filmed the niche that Russ now wants to occupy, and we all dodged a major bullet for it? Anyway, next week is the Lil Durk album bomb, and that big collab between Dua Lipa and Megan Thee Stallion, that hopefully things will be fun, or at least better than this. Stay tuned. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.